Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Revolution podcast. This is where we are transforming lives, inspiring you to reclaim your health, your wealth, and the power of your mind. Here we share actionable insights, inviting you to turn inwards and design your life of purpose and abundance. Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And today's guest is one of those women you recognize instantly as a rememberer. She didn't arrive at her wisdom through theory alone, but through lived experience, initiation, loss, devotion, and decades of walking between worlds where most people are only just beginning to name. Laurie Seymour is a quantum connection mentor. I love that so much. She's a teacher and founder of the Baca Institute. She's spent more than 4 decades exploring the intersection of consciousness, energy, psychology, and quantum science. A girl after my own heart. Long before it was fashionable, validated, or hashtagable, she initiated into a powerful energetic lineage in the late 1980s and later becoming a grand master teacher herself. Laurie's work is rooted in what she calls unconditional remembrance, and we'll talk about her book. The remembering of who we truly are beyond our conditioning, our dogma, and our forgetting. This conversation is about connection to source, feminine wisdom, lived knowing, quantum entanglement. Oh, I love it. And what happens when a woman finally trusts what she has always known in her cells. If you've ever felt like you were too early, too intuitive, or too awake for the world around you, this one is for you. And Laurie, I am so excited. I love, we are so much simpatico. Literally, we could talk for hours. And so today I just want to connect with you, share you with my audience. And I always ask this question: who are you today in 2026? How are you showing up and blessing this beautiful planet?
Well, after listening to your whole introduction and feeling like, wow, I really want to hear this episode, um, I really appreciate that question because this is such a big time of change. It is for everybody in one way or another, and it certainly is on the planet. And we see that we either get worried about it or concerned or think, how am I to be involved? And that feels like the most like really in a way that like the biggest question that is up for me in 2026. And it's knowing that my voice has gone through so many changes. Who I am has gone through so many changes. And that all of what I have been brought to now, I need to take out in bigger ways than I have been perhaps willing to before. So then, the questions come up of what does that mean? What does that look like? How to do it? And the how isn't as important as the willingness to step outside, to step out of one's comfort zone. And I've never been a really big fan of a comfort zone anyway, or of staying in there, because I've always felt like that which is unknown is where I need to go.
Yeah,
And so
I
that
love
is
that.
happening very much in this 2026. I feel it in a very different way in my body.
Yeah. I love that so much because it really truly comes from being on the planet for a number of years, decades.
Mhm.
As we travel this journey, it becomes more open to the mystery and we
Mm.
don't lock down on that fear. And I notice that there's a lot of people in fear right now in this time frame. And yet, it isn't about the fear. The fear will never get us to where we want to be. It's that pulling towards vision that
Mhm.
actually allows us to step into that mystery. And it is scary because as humans, we want to know the how. And I've always
Yeah,
said, we don't need to know the how. We just
right.
need to know the vision. So, what is your vision for you right now
Mm.
going forward?
It is really about being out there in the world. And what I mean by that is I'm starting to travel a lot more. I've always been a traveler, meaning, I go and teach different places but it feels like I'm up leveling all of that. And not because, oh gee, I just want to go and see the world, but really because the message that I'm carrying around not only connecting with yourself, but that the importance of community, the importance of connecting with one another in face-to-face interaction,
Yeah.
where we have that willingness to come from a place of love. And so the salons of life that I do, they're needing to go out in bigger ways. I'm just was this morning working on my Australia trip for May, and it's partly about bringing the book Unconditional Remembrance out, but it's very much more about bringing together those people who do have a big vision, even if they've just started into it, and mm, allowing them to connect more deeply with their own inspirational source, and then
Hmm.
carrying that all the way through as they bring their big idea real.
Let's talk about salons of life because that is a term that you and I might collaborate on and understand, but the rest of them are going, what did she just say? I don't understand what that means. And I really want you to put that in the context of travel because it's in person. I
Right.
feel like the planet really is craving. Now, this is a virtual thing, and it's also just an impetus, as I say, to get people to look further into the guests that I have, because
Mhm.
I believe that the planet is craving that feminine genius called connection. You can get it to a certain degree online. I'm not saying that you can't, but there is nothing like in person. So, talk about these salons and how you see that connection unfolding in a
Mhm.
different way.
I'll describe the vision that was given to me because it really was that kind of, this is yours to do. You can choose
Hmm.
to do it or not, but this is yours to do. And it was about actually meeting in people's living rooms. So someone in a city says, I want to bring some people together. I will go to that city. I go to that city.
Hmm.
And they bring perhaps their friends, a couple of colleagues, whoever they feel moved to include. And these are not big, these are intimate, but these are personal connections. Even if you've just met someone, you say, come to this event, it's happening tonight.
Right.
They're not for um, people who are saying, well, I'm not so sure. There's just a willingness,
Mm.
just like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm willing to come and to have an experience, an energetic experience of remembrance about themselves and who they are. And when that happens within a small group setting, there is such support, such acknowledgement, such love. That's what I have been experiencing, is that
Yeah.
there is a connection with themselves and a connection with each other. And whoever is hosting it also gets celebrated in a whole other way, is what the other
Yeah.
thing that I have been aware of. And for me, it's such an opportunity to come together with people. And then the next part of the vision that has just been starting is that people in the different salons come together. This is virtual because they'll be coming together from all sorts of different
All over.
places in the world, and we start having conversations that are bigger than that initial conversation, and the remembrance keeps growing, and we start building this quite a network of light in the world
Yeah.
and of
Yeah, that's what's
remembrance.
happening on so many different levels as I interview women all the time. Who was it? George Bush, I think, was said the
Oh yeah,
1,000 points of light or something. I
right,
don't know. I
right.
mean,
I
and
remember that.
I'm not trying to pull him out of the closet. I'm just saying that there is that idea, right? And when he would say that, I would imagine these lights all
Hmm.
over the world. And that's what's happening with women in this feminine energy remembrance that you're talking about, that we're
Yes,
all experience it in these little pockets, and they will at some point just coalesce and have that tipping point, that hundredth monkey
yes.
kind of theory going on. But I wanted to talk about your book, this unconditional remembrance, of how that fits into this whole equation. How did you get that downloaded for yourself? And then
Mm.
how are you sharing that in this whole context with these salons and this connection?
Well, the book Unconditional Remembrance: Your Connection to Source was. I started it plus 9+ years ago. Really, when I looked at the way the cycles go, it was at the very beginning of this 9-year cycle that just ended. And it was just published in August. And
Mhm.
so there was quite a long time of where it had to be put away and I was not
Mhm.
working on it. And then it suddenly was like, nope, you need to do this. It's time. And I pay very close attention to timing when I get guidance about timing. And I know that I don't want to miss my timing, no matter what it's for. And it was a bringing together of all of the work that I have done in terms of my own coming to this place in myself and my own experiences of remembrance and how that changed everything in my life. And most definitively, how it changed for me my own experience of self-love, of remembering that I've always been loved, but
Mhm.
I had decades of forgetting, that loss of that original connection.
Yeah. I say our brains leak out at night because
Well,
we
it's
come
by
in.
design. I think it's by
Yes,
design.
I know, but it's sometimes I'm thinking, I knew this yesterday. Why am I repeating this pattern?
Yes.
Well, I do want to cycle into your one experience that was
Mm,
transformative for your life, and that's your relationship with your dad, because I
mm,
know that that plays such an impact in your overall beingness. So I
mm,
want you to just share a little bit of vulnerability with that for our audience, because so many people can relate to, number one, parental connections, whether
mhm,
they're challenging or loving, and also just the fact of how much it impacts us as
mm,
our soul beingness.
mhm. Yeah, if I think about that whole experience as, in a way, designed by my soul, and I certainly can put my arms around that. I see that I lost my father when I was very young. It was just before I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I had both parents. Both parents were fine, but my mother was so caught up with struggling with him around some things, having 4 kids. And I never really felt that sense of love from her. I did feel it from him. It was like he was the person that I stayed connected with that remembrance through. Like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm okay. I'm loved.
Hmm.
And when he died, all of that fell apart. It
Hmm.
didn't have to, but I didn't know that for a very long time. I mean, I could have stayed connected with him, but instead I stayed connected with this memory, but without the feeling of love. And so I
Hmm.
kept looking for it from outside because he had been outside of me. He was separate from me. And I didn't have it, I think, maybe long enough to have developed that core inside myself.
Hmm.
And so I forgot. And I had all kinds of relationships with boys and then men, and, I mean, just in my life, I think looking for that. And there's such a feeling of not okayness that I carried around with myself, that I was not okay. I didn't know why, I didn't know how,
Hmm.
but I became a psychotherapist. I studied all of that. I did so many, personal growth workshops, and oh gosh, I
Hmm.
mean, I was there with the luminaries of the human potential movement. Yet, yet, I never felt like, I always felt like there was a hole.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had quite a physical experience, an energetic experience. That's really what I want to say, or what I want to call it, of being loved. And that it wasn't connected. It was through a person energetically, but it was not from that person. It was because of feeling that energetic connection and remembrance in myself that that self-doubt just went, it's like it vanished.
Yeah.
And even though it returned, I could remember. I could remember through that.
Hmm.
And so that's a kind of core, not just message, but a core piece or heart really of my book,
Yeah.
because it's then teaching people how to remember, showing
Yeah.
people how to remember, and allowing for that remembrance as being possible and
Yeah.
real.
When you say remembering, there's a lot of people that are listening that go, I don't, what is she talking about? Remembering
Okay.
what? Like I can barely remember my grocery list, right? So
Yeah.
talk about what we're remembering, because a lot of people still to this day are just starting on a journey of remembering, and they don't even know what they're remembering. So talk
Right.
to us about what that is from a very basic point of view.
Absolutely. And that's a great question. And I'll say what I really mean by that is is that remembrance that we are connected with everything. We are connected with source, meaning that which gives us life, whether you call it God or presence or the divine, or but that we are a piece of that. And quantum physics has shown us how our energy fields are all connected. So it's remembering that. And when I talk to people, and I talk to people in, whether it's clients or at a book signing or whatever it may be, um, people have a sense of something. They know something. And even if they can't put their finger on it, even if they're just starting to say, wait a minute, but there is that experience that people do recognize and say, yeah, I know what you mean. And then, well, what is that? And it's like that, it's that part of ourselves that is trying to wake us up, remind us of something that we've already known, that maybe that we've always known, but that life takes over. Life takes over, and what am I going to make for dinner, and how am I going to pay the mortgage, and what's my next job, and whether it's on the so-called mundane level or whether it's on the profound level, we I think we want to remember because we know that there's something more. And that's
Hmm.
very often the feeling that starts people on that journey of looking, is that feeling of, I know there's more. I don't know what it is, but I'm willing to step out. I'm willing to experiment.
You are like me that when we started on this path, some of this conversation was considered woo woo. Now I just say woo woo is just now science. And so you talked about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, all of those good things. I love science so much because it really is just the other side of the spiritual coin, because those
Hmm.
just it's that oneness. So how did you start to really delve into the quantum physics of it? Because
Mm.
that is the true oneness from a scientific perspective.
Well, I think I first started in starting to study neuroscience and neuroanatomy, and that level of how the body was created and how we're connected in all these different ways. And I, I, I started looking at that in relationship to psychology and, the interfaces between psychology and science, and it's particularly neuroscience. And that was never enough. I was studying music and how music and the vibration and frequency were impact us psychologically, physically, energetically. And that was a big part of my study and research. And that was still not enough. And it was really after some of these experiences and knowing that a very dear friend who was part of this work was a research scientist. And one time he said something like, science has just not caught up in terms of the capacity to research the kinds of things that we're all experiencing
Mhm.
in these ways of working with energy. I was like, right, right. And then the more I started reading in quantum physics and quantum entanglement, which you mentioned earlier, and
Mhm.
trying to understand, what is it that's going on when we say, I just had a quantum leap?
Yeah.
But what is it really, not just as a metaphor?
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that, wait a minute, this is how the world works. This is how the universe works. And yet people want to, people who don't understand it want to diminish it one way or another, or just not have a way to step into it.
Yeah, it's just what you don't know is scary. And that's
Hmm.
a lot of what's going on in the world
Yeah.
today is that there is fear fueled by things that I just don't understand. Because you come from a psychology background as well,
Hmm.
what is it that is so much in this human psyche that will drive us through fear? I mean, I don't live in that fear, but the
Hmm.
fact is that because for me, it's about the love, it's about the connection, it's about the communication, it's about the oneness. And yet there is this huge disconnect in our world to the 3D human and
Hmm.
forget that we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right,
What,
right.
from a psychology perspective,
Hmm.
and give me some feedback on that because it makes
Sure,
me a little
sure.
nutty sometimes.
And it's especially acute right now with what we're witnessing going on in the world, which is
Right.
such separation. You talk about
Yes.
oneness, but what we're getting fed back to us is separation.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I'm here and who I am is okay, but you're over there and you're
Right.
different from me.
Right.
So from a psychological, but from a neuropsychological perspective, the
Hmm.
part of the brain, the amygdala, that um, controls fight or flight, that
Hmm.
helps us make sense of what's happening, and that protects us. So
Hmm.
all of the patterning runs through the amygdala. And so when we have a situation in our lives that seems similar to something else that was scary, that for whatever reason might have been even traumatic, we look at this current situation, we don't see it as it is. We don't see it in a clear eyed way. And what we do is the amygdala comes rushing into the foreground and says, stop. That saber toothed
Hmm.
tiger is about to chomp your head off. And
Yeah.
we retreat. We retreat into fear. We retreat into what we already know.
Hmm.
And the the dilemma of that and the sadness of that is that then we don't get to experience something new. And we miss out on the beauty, we miss out on the joy, we miss out on the excitement of
Yeah.
what might be here ready for us right now.
It's so important that we have these light circles, these
Hmm.
salons, these moments where people are coalescing in that energy.
Yes.
Because as you said, with quantum physics, people don't really realize that it's just energy. When
Hmm.
Einstein said it, what did he say in 1955? Everything is energy, full stop. We can stop talking now. And
Hmm.
that is so interesting how it's taken science that long to catch up with. It's just energy. You look at it from scans, infrared radar. Our bodies have these energies that go beyond our bodies. I mean,
Hmm.
that's not woo woo, that's science.
Yeah.
And so we're
Yes.
constantly bumping into energy all the time.
Right.
That's all part of this oneness. So, talk about that from the perspective of how your work is bringing
Mhm.
all of the people that you deal with into this oneness. What is the catalyst for people doing that for themselves?
I might say it a little differently than a catalyst or bringing them into the oneness.
Okay.
It's more, well, bringing them into the awareness of their remembrance, because oneness is not something that we always want. You
Yeah.
know, if
Yeah.
if somebody's in my field that is really angry and
Hmm.
may not be directed at me, but I don't want to have my field there in the mix of their anger or their
Hmm.
judgment of me or whatever it is that's going on. I want to be able to hold into the clarity of my own energy field.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll start to shift their resonance and
Yeah.
raise their frequency. But I don't have to even think about that. But the capacity for us to come together in our own unique remembrance, because everybody has a different way of expressing themselves. But when you're there with your own remembrance of your connection, it's so much easier, and it's almost like an of course moment to then look at someone else and say, oh, God is present here and God is also present there. And let me be curious about them. Let me see if I can listen without it being loaded, without, my own amygdala coming to the foreground thinking something's wrong here.
Right. This is so fascinating. We either believe that we're all one or we don't. It's not a middle ground thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're one, sometimes we're not. And so if that's the case, which I believe that it is, then I'm constantly looking at myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're mirroring back exactly who we are from inside, so that
Yeah.
if we don't like what we're seeing out there, then why am I seeing that? I'm reflecting it. So there's something inside of me that's potentially creating this reflection back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get to that place? I know listening is really important, but there's got to be some other energetic components that hold that energy that we know is the truth of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
our own soulfulness, our own remembering. Because when we're founded and grounded in that,
Mm-hmm.
then we bounce off. We have this sort of space bubble, I call it, that pushes away all of that other energy, or they get absorbed into our energy. So what are some of the techniques that you share that we can do that
Um,
on a human level?
I actually don't share a lot of techniques around it. I share more about I create energetic experiences so that people can get that strong feeling within themselves, so that in a moment they can have the awareness if they're feeling off, how to come back on, how to use their breath to come back into that core connection, that source connection. And then it's a nuanced kind of thing because it's not only that someone else is mirroring you to yourself. Sometimes I don't like somebody's act. Like we have our personality that is expressing in the world, and I might not like your act. And that's okay. But can I still love the God self within that other person?
Yeah.
And having both of those almost side by side might even be your partner in a moment. I don't like your act.
Hmm.
So it's not, I mean, we could get into a lot of deeper level kinds of things here that I don't know that we have that much time to really do. Um,
Right.
but it's remembering yourself and your connection. If you're there in the middle of a business meeting and people are doing their thing, they're saying whatever they're saying, and you feel like, oh, I have some clarity about what's going on. And yet you feel yourself get thrown off because you get kind of caught up in everybody else's thing. No one's going to know if you take a moment right then and there to just take a few conscious breaths. And in that conscious breath, remember who you are.
Hmm.
So I'm going to cough in that moment too. But excuse me, I think I'm going to take a sip of water. But that allowance for yourself to have a little space to remember. And then, am I coming from judgment? Am I trying to control the situation?
Hmm.
These are questions I ask myself. Is this
Right.
appropriate?
Hmm.
And when you feel that love in yourself, because the question comes down to what would love do in
Yeah.
this moment?
Yes.
Then to be able to share what your sensing of the situation is, or perhaps what the next step needs to be. And it's amazing because what I have witnessed so many times is that when that kind of quality of input comes in, people start to shift. Their energy starts to shift because they get reminded of who they are, even if they don't know that that's what's happening. And it's
Yeah.
because you're holding a particular frequency and you're speaking from that frequency. And other people start to just feel it and they get
Yeah.
drawn. Some
Yeah.
people will get really mad because they want to hold on to where they've been and they're going to
Yep.
get pissed off at you and want to shut you down.
Yep. Yep. I always say frequency is more powerful than force.
Mm-hmm.
And as we sit in that frequency and really know what that frequency feels like,
Mm-hmm.
then we have command over our energy, our
Exactly.
frequency, and it allows other people to be themselves as well. I had
Mm-hmm.
somebody on his podcast today, I think it was, and he was talking about every time we meet somebody that we know, even
Mm-hmm.
but see them newly. Walk into that and see them
Mm.
new. And
Yes,
that's what a profound statement that is. That we
truly.
do, we program ourselves so well. We have a very powerful AI up here. And if we program ourselves to see somebody the same every time we experience them,
Mm-hmm.
well, guess what? We're going to get the same experience.
Right.
So it's a beautiful blessing that we have the ability to shift our frequency, to engage our breath, to do all these somatic movements with our body
Mm-hmm.
and change the energy that we're in a moment, which
In
is
a
so
moment.
magical. And we don't
Yes.
realize it. We get so locked into our habitual behavior. It's kind of
And
comical sometimes.
we have been told over and over again, oh, it takes a long time to change. It's really difficult to change.
Yeah.
I was a psychotherapist for many years. I'm
Hmm.
sure I said that many a time. And then I
Probably.
started having experiences that showed me something completely different. And so
Yep.
I had to stop being a psychotherapist. I had to say,
Hmm.
I'm to my clients, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I could explain this is what's happening for me. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what will be next. And you're welcome to hang around, so to speak, and continue on this journey with me. But there were people that just really wanted to keep, I could say this is maybe has a little judgment in it, rehashing what was old or digging
Yep.
up what was old.
Right. Right.
If it comes up and it's there to be attended to, absolutely.
Yep. Yep.
But to go looking for it when we have so much capacity and so much potential to explore and to tap into that can
Yep.
be far more healing than other ways of working
Right. In the present moment. I
in
love
the
Joe
present
Dispenza
moment.
because he talks about that. We're revisiting all of those things, or we
Hmm.
live in the future, which is not here. And this
Hmm.
present moment is all we have.
Hmm.
And yet we don't spend hardly any time in the present moment because we're on all these other spectrums, which I
Mm.
find just delightful and funny. So I want to talk about this Australia trip.
Ah.
I was in Australia teaching the most receptive groups of people because I've taught mostly in the US, but other countries, and they just feel hungry for information to me. So tell me
Mm.
a little bit about that trip and what you're going to be doing and how somebody might go and see you even while you're there.
Um, so I had some big ideas along with a colleague, friend, and student of mine who is in Australia to teach Turea Touch classes. Turea Touch is part of the system of which I was initiated as the Grand Master. And because it's not quite so known there,
Hmm.
and also because Australia is a very big place, we were going to do 4 cities, and we
Hmm.
kind of scaled that back. And I'm going to be doing some book events, primarily in Adelaide, in South
Hmm.
Australia.
Hmm.
Might do some things in Melbourne too. Um,
Hmm.
but book events, I'm going to do a salon in Adelaide. So if you're listening to this and that's a place where you know someone, let them know they can reach out to me.
Absolutely.
And I want to do bookstore. I will be doing bookstore events. Um, and the other piece that I'm also going to be bringing here is the Inspiration into Action program. And
Hmm.
really, this is a program for those people who are creative, who are innovators, who are seekers, people who have a sensing that there is more and sensing of a big vision that they want to move from just the vision into actuality. And this is to teach people how to stay connected with that energy of of not initiation, the energy of inspiration
Hmm.
all the way through the process of creating. Because what
Hmm.
happens is that people interrupt themselves. Well, I've got my great idea. Now I've got to get to work. But they shut down.
Yeah.
They don't realize that inspiration is there all the way through, and that it's that energy that is the connection to source. So that
Yep.
you can bring that, you can tap into source to say, this is my inner guidance system. So how am I to, what's the next step? Who do I bring onto this team? How do I deal with this objection? But it doesn't have to come from simply imposing a system on what you want to create, but it's really deeply infused with that energy of unconditional love and unconditional remembrance.
Yeah, I love that because we have been taught in this 3D world to push, to
Hmm.
struggle, to figure it out. That's a
Yes.
very masculine energy, which there's nothing wrong with masculine energy, but it's very analytical. And this just asking the question of our intuitive nature and
Hmm.
then waiting for the answer, because waiting's a problem for us too. And that is that connection. I love that, that
Yeah,
don't disconnect from your inspiration. What a
exactly.
valuable piece of wisdom. I can't even share with you.
Yeah. And then there's nothing wrong with figuring things out. There's nothing wrong with it, as you said, the masculine, but how do we bridge that gap? And this program is really energetically teaching you how to bridge that gap and how to
Yeah,
keep that source alive in you.
yeah. So talk about the Tetra touch,
Tereya touch.
Terea touch. Talk
Mhm.
about that a little bit because that's a new vocabulary for me.
Okay. Well, Tereya touch and Tereya meditation were brought through by my teacher Dawn, and they're two different ways of working with energy. One is hands-on, the Tereya
Hmm.
touch. The other is a meditation form that both work with higher consciousness energy symbols, and they're both about raising your frequency and moving into those parts of yourself that haven't yet been activated. So
Hmm.
it's an activation process, it's an inspirational process, and it teaches people how to stay connected. It teaches
Hmm.
people, um, they really take people through whatever the old patterns are, because all they are old patterns, and into what's new, activating that which is new so that you can start living that in your life.
That's beautiful. That's exciting. I'm gonna maybe plan a trip to Australia. That would be fun to just hang out with you.
Absolutely.
Show us your book so everybody
Mhm.
knows what it looks like when they go on to order it, Unconditional Remembrance. And I will put in the show notes accessibility to your website and to
Great,
any other place that you share with me, meaning your socials and how to
great.
get the book. But more importantly, when are you going to be launching this program that you're
Well, I've
in
run this
development?
program a number of times virtually. And I haven't for a little while because I've been feeling like, okay, there's something that's needing to be shifting, that is shifting with it. And so now it will be happening in Australia, not virtually, but live and in person,
Live, yeah. Yeah.
which
So
I'm very
that's
excited
exciting.
to do again. I haven't done it live for a long, I mean, in person live for a long
Oh,
time.
well,
But
that's
even
exciting.
virtually, what I've been in awe of is the connections that people have with one another, the support that's there, and the way in which their own trust in themselves
Hmm.
explodes through the roof
Yeah.
because they know that they're connected and they know how to reconnect in a moment.
I ask everybody at the end of my podcast to, especially since we're in this brand new 2026 and you've come through a 9 year cycle as well, you're connected and you're remembering and your intuition is already peaked. Drop into that
Mhm.
and ask for the wisdom that is to be shared with this planet, especially
Mm.
women for 2026. Something that is really, really coming through for you.
It is indeed time for us to give credence to that which arises from within us. We have been taught over and over and over again not to trust that which arises. And yet, that no longer works. That is not even allowed to happen in this new frequency. So that your willingness to both ask for and receive the kind of guidance that you require is paramount at this time. It is far more than intuition. This is inner guidance that has to do with your own soul, with your heart answering the call, you answering the call.
Beautiful. I love that. What a great
Mm.
note to end on. And I am so blessed that you shared your time with us, Lori. And I'd love to have you back on after. Maybe we'll go into Australia together, or maybe I'll have a podcast with you right beforehand to pique everybody's interest because I think
Ah,
it's so exciting. And you're doing such beautiful work in the world. I am
mm.
so blessed that you shared your time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm delighted and so moved to be here with you.